It's more so about education, right? They're kind of searching for answers. They have a question, they want to answer. How do I troubleshoot this thing? How do I install this? So right there, you have literally an endless amount of content that you could be putting out. It's about thinking from the perspective of your client. What are the questions that they ask you all the time?
Right.
And then that's a piece of content.
Well, welcome back. It's Seymour Mac.
Welcome back.
Mike Brown is the owner of Seymour Mac Productions, a video production company specializing in brand attraction video content for businesses that are looking to increase brand awareness and build that trust. So, Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm so
It's been
glad
so
that
long.
you
I haven't seen you in like
I
what, 3 hours, 2 hours?
Yeah, 3 hours. For those that don't know, Michael is also in my BNI, and I always make mention of BNI when I'm doing these podcasts. It's a business network referral group, BNI. So find a chapter near you. So, Mike, when you and I met, it was before BNI. I think I brought you into our BNI. What was it that got us to meet? I feel like you might have been
Yeah.
a client or something like that, looking
Yeah,
for
well,
help.
I had reached out to you to ask you some bookkeeping questions because I was new with my business.
Hmm.
So I started Seymour Mac Productions in 2020, but I was still working for another company. I was still working as in pharmaceuticals.
Hmm.
So I started my business then, but I was really only doing it on the weekend. I
Yeah.
was I was kind of like getting reacclimated to videography. I took a long hiatus from anything creative. So in 2020, I finally, I guess, chewed my friend and my mentor's ear off enough about it. I think I might do video again. And he was just like, dude, you've been saying this for like 5 months, man. Just do it already. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I should probably just do it. So I kind of like got back into it, was like, you know what? Let me make this like real. Let me start a LLC. Let's like start a real company, but was still working my regular job and doing it on the side. And kind of like 2020, 21, um, and then yeah, like 2020, those two first years, I was just like getting my chops up again, like getting some work under my belt, working for him, shooting weddings, doing some editing work, kind of like some low level stuff compared to what I'm doing now. And then 2022, in the middle of 22, I kind of severed my relationship from my old employer and just went full full steam ahead with videography. So this year in 2023 is actually my first full year in business. But all that to say that when we got connected, I had kind of reached out to you because I was like, well, if I'm going to be doing this full time, I maybe should have some answers to some of these bookkeeping questions. Because I was like really worried about, am I doing things properly? Right?
Yeah.
Am I taking advantage fully of having a business, but also am I really like categorizing things right? So I had reached out to you because your office is very close to me. We live pretty close to each other. And yeah, you got back to me and that's how we got connected. You gave me some free consult, you answered some questions
There
for me. And you were like, "Hey, you ever hear of BNI?"
you go.
And my friend Mike DeSoma, who is also a BNI member, many
Yep.
years ago
Yep.
had told me about BNI, but I wasn't ready for it, right? I
Yeah.
was like not taking business seriously. I was still working that job. So when you brought it up, I was like, you know what? I think maybe is now the time
It's
where
time.
I should at least consider it. So I visited once and I knew right away, like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna join.
Yeah. Yeah. That was good. It was good for me too.
Yeah, yeah, you got a visitor and
I
a new
got a
member
visitor.
under your
Yep.
belt.
Exactly. Exactly. Showing what I could do. But I love your business. You got to tell us, who is Seymour Mac?
Okay, yeah, Seymour Mac. So the name of my company is not very intuitive to what I do, right? It should have been like cameraguy.com or something like that. But Seymour Mac, Dr. Seymour Mac Goldstein is my late grandfather. One of like the pillars in my life growing up. Just a great man. He was a chiropractor for 67 years. He
Mhm.
took patients up until he was about 91 years old. and then he passed away right before his 94th birthday.
Yeah.
So, he used to always say growing up, when I was growing up, like, if I stop doing this, I'm probably going to pass away. And pretty much like when he stopped, working as a chiropractor, he passed on. But he was such an inspiration. He is like the morality that I have, like the why on why I do what I do.
Hmm.
A lot of it comes from what I learned from him. He just loved taking care of his patients. He loved building those relationships. I mean, he had a lot of like celebrities that went and saw him. His practice was in Brooklyn, New York, and just kind of like going to the office with my mom and like getting free adjustments from him, and then seeing how he interacted with people growing up
Right.
was it's like it's a memory that I'll never forget. And I wanted, his legacy to kind of live on. So I actually started the business and was able to let him know, like, hey, I'm naming my business after you before he passed away. So he got to see a little bit of my work that I was doing, and I kind of explained to him why I wanted to name it after him. And it's like, for me, it's just a reminder of, hey man, remember why you're doing this. It's
Yeah.
not about the dollar. It's about doing what, God has gifted you to be creative and to help other people out. So
Right.
if I make a bunch of money, I welcome it. I'm not going to throw any money in the garbage, but if I'm able to help my clients out, help them achieve a goal, overcome a challenge, help them capture a memory, that's what it's all about for me. And that's
Wow.
why I named it after him, because he instilled that in me.
That is great. Now, of course, before I saw how it was spelled, it just sounded like Seymour Mac. And I'm like, that is the coolest name ever.
Yeah. I used to be a rapper growing up, and that would have I was joking around like if that was my rap name, I probably would have been successful, but it was
Yeah.
something stupid, it was like MC such and such. So yeah, that would have been like a way cooler name to have. But that's a lifetime ago. And that's actually how I got into video, is when we were doing music out of high school, and then like late teens, early 20s. We were just too poor to hire somebody to film a music video for us.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll get like a cheap camera, and I'll, maybe download a program, and I'll figure it out. And that's how I got my start with videography. It was
Gotcha.
through music that led me to video.
Oh, that is great. When I invited you to be and I'll tell you something that most of the time the videographers, they are wedding videographers, and that's pretty much what I thought. So tell me, are you a wedding, do you work at weddings? Are you a wedding videographer or not?
Yeah, so everybody who's watching this, just Google videographer near me. Every single one of them is going to be a wedding videographer, right?
Gotcha.
So I saw that
Uh-huh.
and I was like, this is so saturated. And there's
Yeah.
some really good wedding videographers in our area.
Oh, absolutely.
My mentor and good friend of mine, Peter Mackey, he owns Mackey Photo and Video right in Stroudsburg on Main Street. He's a fantastic wedding photographer. That's like his bread and butter is photography, but he actually got to start in videography. So I actually do a lot of weddings for him. I just
Oh,
film the weddings.
yeah.
I hand him the memory card at the end of the night, and then I never look at the footage again. So he has like editors that he works with, and that's kind of like how I prefer to work in weddings.
Yeah.
I enjoy filming weddings. It's nice to be able to be in that environment, to feel the love of, like you remember your wedding day, how it was perfect, right? Everything was
Absolutely.
amazing, right? Mine too. It was amazing. So to be in that element and to feel that love and to be a part of capturing that for somebody is like it's really special. And the way that we work together as a team when I'm working for Peter is it's fun.
Mhm.
Like we are two peas in a pod. So when we're together, we're just like cracking jokes on each other, cracking jokes on the groomsmen. Like, we're making everybody feel like, hey, you're safe with us, because it can kind of be weird to have a camera in your face from like 8 a.m. until, 11 p.m. So we have a really good time, but that's how I kind of prefer it. But I saw that the market was pretty saturated. It's like every videographer is a wedding videographer. Maybe they do some business stuff. So
Right.
I was like, you know what? Let me flip it a little bit and create a little more advantage for myself being a new video production company in the area. I'm going to be business, and then maybe I'll do some wedding. So I'll do a wedding if it makes sense to do it, but if you're looking for a good wedding photographer, I'm gonna plug him. Mackie Photo and Video. He's your
Uh,
guy for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do remember my wedding. I didn't have a videographer. I actually regret that now, of course, but money was always tight, when you're dealing with weddings and stuff. So I did have a photographer and I had such a great time with the photographers. One of them, he really looked like a Disney character. I mean, it was ridiculous. But what was funny was he when he was taking pictures of me, there's one where, like the sun is shining in my face. I can barely open my eyes and he's like straddling me, like I'm on the floor. He's straddling me. Husband to be is over there or whatever. And I couldn't, I'm like, I have the ugliest face on because I'm laughing. Like, this is so awkward. This guy is like, literally
Yeah.
junk in the face and everything.
It was a early honeymoon.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to get the shot.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta get the shot. Yeah. How did that picture come out in the end?
I don't show it. In fact, when
Okay.
I this is this is a throwaway pic.
Yeah.
He was trying to be creative. Like
Yeah, yeah.
terrible.
So luckily with Pete, he's very good. None of that kind of stuff happens, but like sometimes you got to trust the process, right? Like we have another, or I should say, he has another associate
Uh-huh.
photographer that comes in from Brooklyn, and we've done a bunch of weddings together. And I always tell like the groom and the bride, like just trust the vision, right? Because Robert's got a vision, and he like these guys, they've been doing it for so long, and they've probably messed up enough in the beginning where they're like, okay, I know what not to do.
Uh-huh.
So like you kind of get the process down pat. So now it's like I know I'm gonna get the shots, like the basic shots that they're gonna want, and then it's like that you have a little bit of room to be creative. Now, hopefully, you're not laying on the lawn, with the photographer's junk in your face or whatever, and then, your husband to be is ready to wrestle. But like you gotta have fun, you explore a little bit of creativity, but that's a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's
And
very
we've
weird.
we've seen some weird ones. I mean, I've worked with some other photographers
Uh,
in weddings, and
uh,
you see some weird stuff go down. You like some really awkward positioning and shots, and like there's a guy like sliding across the floor, a videographer sliding across the floor. Like all the shots from this wedding were like from the ankles up. It's just like, what is going on here? So
yeah.
us creatives,
Yeah, exactly.
you can get a little carried away sometimes.
Love it. I love it. All right, so back to business because the show
Yeah.
is called Show You the Business.
Yeah.
And I
Let's,
know that you help businesses grow. I mean, let's face it, that's what the whole point of it is. So what types of businesses could use your talents to grow their business? What industries are you working with?
Yeah. So I mean, broadly, it's like every business probably could utilize video, right?
Yeah.
But specifically where I find myself working mostly
Mhm.
is a lot of construction industry, and that's for a few reasons. One, when I was kind of figuring out where I was going to niche down and kind of like fit into the marketplace, I saw it as a really good opportunity. The construction industry is pretty vast, right? We're talking everything from like the painter all the way up to the commercial contractor that's
Mhm.
building like hospitals or stadiums, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity there. Um, for me, as far as generating revenue for my own business, I mean, it's like endless, right? I mean, construction has billions and billions of dollars invested and spent and generated over the course of the year in the industry. So, it's a lot of opportunity for me. But then I also used to do construction growing up. I
Mm.
framed houses, I did residential electric, I did a little bit of roofing. I did, I kind of had my hand in a little bit of everything.
Right.
So I can kind of speak the language, right? So when I'm talking to these guys, typically they're like kind of like old school guys. A couple things. One, they don't really want to talk to some artsy fartsy camera guy, right? So, and they also don't want to waste any time. So when I hop on a phone call with them, especially if it's like a cold call or we're just kind of speaking for the first time,
Yeah.
you got like a couple sentences before they decide whether they hate you or they're going to let you speak for another 5 minutes. So they just don't have time to waste. So I found that I kind of fit into that industry with what I do pretty well. And then when they meet me, I look like I belong on the job site, right? So it's just like, oh, you look like you could be on the roof right now or like pouring the concrete with my crew. So
Mhm.
it is like a very comforting fit for them, I think, to see that I'm not just like some liberal arts major that, is trying to like squeeze some money out of them. But I do always lead with how can I actually help you, right? It's not about how much money can I get out of your budget. It's what are you trying to achieve? Does video even make sense for you? Because sometimes I talk to people and they're like, "Well, yeah, I really want to like a commercial." And when I start diving into like what their situation is with their business, they're like, "Well, I don't even have tools yet in my tool bag." And it's like, "All right, well, maybe buy a hammer and start figuring out how to do the jobs before you could promote yourself to get more work because it doesn't make sense. You're not going to be able to take those jobs anyway." So I try to be as honest and as transparent with people as possible, whether I think it makes sense for them to work with somebody like me. Um, but a lot of construction, a lot of recently a lot of like coaches, like business coaches, life coaches, been doing a lot of events
Mhm.
like that, conferences. Those
Mhm.
are really good for me as well.
Okay.
And what other types of businesses? I mean, if you own a business and you're not using video in some fashion to promote or accelerate your brand or your business outreach, then you're really leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. So whether you do it yourself or you hire somebody like me to partner with to do something at a higher level, you should be doing something. And
Right.
with smartphone technology, like if you have a new iPhone or a new Samsung or something like that, the cameras on that are so good. I mean, I filmed the whole wedding on my phone and nobody even knew it was from my phone. They were just like,
Wow.
"Wow, that's really amazing. What'd you use?" And I tell them and they're kind of blown away. Now it's like you could have really good equipment, not know how to use it. So it doesn't make all the difference, but at least it's a foot in the door where you could start doing stuff yourself. And then maybe you realize like, oh, this takes a lot more time and effort than I want to spend on it. Let me partner with somebody like Mike and he could do all the heavy lifting in that area and I could just continue to run my business and hopefully through that partnership it's generate more revenue for them. And then if I lift you up as a business, it's only going to propel me as well.
Yeah.
Your budgets for marketing and video are going to go up. If you spend 10 grand with me and you make 150 grand with that video, all right, you're going to say, hey, what can we do with 20 grand? What can we do with 50 grand? So
Yeah. No,
if
absolutely.
I'm helpful, then it helps me, right?
No,
So
absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
that's like my main goal and main industry that I'm working in is construction.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, I would say that there are a lot of, I'm in the service industry. I mean, obviously construction is too, but there's not a lot of action going on in my office or anything like that. We're not walking around with ladders and, all these fancy tools and everything else like that. Is there any advice that you would give someone who has a business, like a service business, an accounting office, if we're not doing events, what could we be doing in video, or if we could even use your services?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, yeah, to your point, like on a construction site, there's a lot going on, right? You have cranes, you got bulldozers, you got guys pulling wires. There's a lot of stuff that would make very attractive content for their social media platforms. Very easy to like make that translation there. But for somebody in your position, like you said, you're not like doing cartwheels around the office, right? So you could answer the phone and we could slow that down. It would probably look cool if your hair flipped, but like how many times could you do that? Yeah, exactly. You know, but how many times could you do that before that gets tired, right? It's like, oh, I
Right.
saw the hair flip slow motion thing. Where your power is information, right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
So kind of specifically when we're talking about content creation for businesses like yours is I always say if you can educate somebody or you can enter it's like education, entertainment, and emotion are like the three E's that I always talk about, right? So first and foremost is education. When people are searching through YouTube, they're looking mostly for answers. Sometimes it's like I just want to be entertained, and that's where that short form content comes into play, right? With like Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels now, and then YouTube. Like old school YouTube was more like about entertainment,
Hmm.
and then YouTube Shorts, which is their short form platform. But it's more so about education, right? They're kind of
Yeah.
searching for answers. They have a question, they want to answer. How do I troubleshoot this thing? How do I install this? How do I, I'm a new business owner. How do I do my bookkeeping? So right there, you have literally an endless amount of content that you could be putting out. It's about thinking from the perspective of your client. What are the questions that they ask you all the time?
Right.
And then that's a piece of content. The first time that I called you, trying to remember what like the specific question I had for you was, but it probably had something to do with like categorizing something and making sure that I'm maximizing my deductions as
Oh yeah.
like my tax liability, right? I want to
Yeah.
reduce that as much as possible. So like every year you will have content like the new year comes around, tax laws change probably a little bit every year. There's a new deduction, a new policy, something like that,
Yeah.
right? There's an opportunity to create some content and you're giving value away, right? So um Harmozy, Gary V, probably Cardone also. I'm not as familiar with his like regular content, but these guys, what they really harp on is value.
Yes.
Give, and then sometimes ask. Maybe you don't even have to ask, right? You don't have to sell. You give so much value away that when the time comes and somebody needs somebody like you in their life to do bookkeeping or answer some questions, you're going to be top of mind. And if you've
Correct.
been putting out that value over and over and over consistently, and it is a long-term strategy, content creation, it could be months or years before it really starts translating to conversions for you. But if you're answering questions and you're giving value away, that is powerful. That is really powerful. So you don't have to worry about like action shots or being entertaining necessarily. Now, if you could couple education with entertainment, so you have a great personality, like you have a beautiful smile, a great laugh, like
Oh, thank
these are all things you do personally. You do, I'm telling you.
you.
You leverage your who you are just
Yeah.
naturally
Hmm.
while you're educating, and people get attached to your personality.
Right.
So they may be able to get the education from somebody else who is putting similar content out, but they'll gravitate towards you because something about you resonates with them.
Mm.
So it's always about just kind of like being who you are, right? You could tell when somebody's faking it. So don't be fake, just be who you are. And sometimes who you are is like an introvert and maybe weird and shy. And at first, it's going to be very uncomfortable to put yourself on camera and put content out. But eventually, you will kind of find a groove. And maybe even that quirkiness or that weirdness is the thing that people gravitate towards.
Right.
So it's like, don't be afraid to be yourself, right? So educate, entertain,
Hmm.
and emotion. So like the personality and the quirkiness, that's kind of like the emotion piece too. It's like if you could connect with somebody on an emotional level while you're giving them value, I mean, your potential goes through the roof. So that would be like my advice. It's just like be yourself, educate people, give value away as much as possible for free without asking for anything. But then also don't be afraid to ask. After you've given so much value away, why not say like, hey, if you're getting a lot of value out of these videos, you can go to my website and I have a QuickBooks training course where there's different options that, you can learn how to use QuickBooks. Either you do it yourself through a video course, I do it with you, or I do it for you. Boom, that's a conversion right there. So
Got it.
give it away, but also don't be afraid to ask. You'll kind of have to figure out when the timing is right for the ask part.
That's perfect. That's perfect. One of the things that I've learned in my business is the fact that, just like you said, when people are looking, by the time they come to me for my service, so to speak, they already know 80% of the answers because they're looking for it on, the YouTubes and that kind of thing. And, maybe they've gone to my YouTube channel, maybe they've gone to my website first, but the fact is that that content is actually what draws them in. So you're absolutely right. Love it.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's funny because I did your QuickBooks training, which really got my
Yeah.
feet on the ground, right?
Yep.
I had spoken to another bookkeeper, like tax person,
Hmm.
that I had gotten connected with. So I was like just in conversation with her and I was like kind of talking to her about stuff. And she said to me, she was like, "You know just enough to be dangerous." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, is like, you know, just enough to where you'll start doing stuff in like QuickBooks
Uh-huh.
and moving stuff around like at maybe a too fast of a pace. You'll
Uh-huh.
like miscategorize some stuff, and then like 3 months later, you'll realize like, oh, something is off, and then you'll have to go back and fix it, or you'll have to call somebody like Joanne and be like, "Hey, I'm over my head. Like, I need you to like put your eyes on this thing." So it's like, yeah, you're right. People who are going to be contacting you most likely have already done some level of research. So it's like, okay, knowing that, why not you be the one who's giving them
Exactly.
the information, right? So it's
Exactly.
all in one
Exactly.
place. The conversion rate, your conversion rate's going to increase if they're getting the education from you to begin with. And then they reach the point like I did where I'm like, okay, there's just stuff here that's above my pay grade. Let me call her. Let me reach out, and then boom, there's a conversion for you. So it's a powerful tool.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, your services, how much does something like that cost to get somebody to do something like that? What do you got there?
Yeah, so like the number one question I get is how much
How
does
much?
video cost, right? And it's like buying a car, right? It's do you want a Kia or do you want a Lamborghini? Because we could
Mm-hmm.
make you a video that's a lower end budget and we can make you a video that's, $100,000, So the range really is super vast. So
Hmm.
I don't really have pricing
Okay.
sheets, right? Like, so if you go to a wedding videographer, so there are a couple things that I actually do have pricing sheets for weddings because it's typically the same thing. You got like package A, B, and C, right? And they kind of go up, you get more as you go up. Real estate, that's another one where it's like it's like cookie cutter. So it's like based off square footage. And then if you want to do photo and video, you want to do drone, like there's like added services in there, but it's kind of like a la carte. So those are like kind of like predetermined. But when it comes to video B2B type of videos, it it varies so much. So I can't say it's going to be $5,000. I can't say it's going to be $20,000. It depends on a couple factors. First of all, what are you trying to accomplish, right?
Right.
So when I'm talking to you as a business owner, if you tell me, "Hey, I'm trying to use video in my strategy to get to $1 million," and then I ask you what your revenue's at now, and you say, "Well, I'm making $50,000 now." It's like, okay, well, one video probably isn't going to cut it, and it's going to take a lot of effort to get you from 50,000 to $1 million in revenue, right? So it's an understanding of where you're at and where you're trying to go. So that plays a big part in it. The other thing is like the value, right? I kind of base it on value. So is this video even going to be valuable for you? When we break it down, if the goal of the video is for you to increase revenue, to attract higher paying clients into your business, what do those clients look like? What kind of revenue are you generating from those clients? How much? And I will typically give you like multiple options to choose from once I figure out what type of videos that we're going to create for you and what the goal of the videos are going to be. So they'll kind of be like a lower budget, middle budget, and then a high end budget, so you can kind of have options and see what the possibilities are. And each one of those is based on getting to the goal that you're seeking to achieve. But like I said, it's kind of like getting there in different types of cars, right? Like the experience of going from A to B in a Kia, and not to rag on Kias, I'm sure they're very nice, is
They
a
are.
much different experience than driving in a Mercedes Benz, right? So what do you want that experience to be like? How much effort are we going to actually have to put in it? Is it going to be a 1 day production, or is
Mhm.
this going to be a 5 day production? Are we going to have to hire actors? Are we going to have to permit locations? Do you want the Blue Angels to fly through the back of your video? Because all of this is possible. It's just we got to figure out how much we got to pay the Blue Angels and then, like permit the FAA to let us fly them through Mount Pocono or something like that. So it's like all things are possible, but what's your budget, right? And that's kind of what it comes down to. It's like what after I discover like what the goal is, what the challenges are, where you're at, where you're trying to go, what's your budget? I just straight up ask my potential clients. And
Right.
a lot of times they don't want to answer,
They
right?
don't.
It's a couple things. Well, I don't know how much these things cost. You tell me, then I give them the whole it's like buying a car routine. And if that doesn't help them kind of come to some sort of range, um, a lot of times I kind of feel like people are scared to put a number out there. Like maybe they know what they want to spend, but they don't want to be the first one to say, well, I've got $10,000 because then they think I'm going to try to take advantage of them in some way, right? So it's like, what's your realistic budget? Because we can make a video for 5,000 bucks and we can make one for 50. But if I'm going to leave our discussion preparing three or four different concepts for you that are way above your budget, then I'm wasting my time and I'm wasting
Yeah.
your time, right? So I don't want to waste anybody's time. So it's like trying to figure out like what the budget is. And if I can't get them to like give me a range or an idea of what the budget is, I just let them know like, hey, typically my projects right now are averaging about $10,000 a project.
There you go.
Is that something that you can do? And sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, we got that. No problem. Or,
Yeah.
whoa, that's way more than I thought. I was like, okay, well, what were you thinking? Well, I was thinking 500 bucks. Well, I'm thinking we're not a good fit for each other. But also be realistic, like, hey, if you're trying to generate $100,000 in revenue and you want your business to be presented as like a very professional, high quality business, but you want to cut corners and nickel and dime somebody on the marketing end of it,
Yeah.
those two things don't go together. It's
No.
I want to look like we're the best of the best, but I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's
No,
like,
I got
okay,
you.
how can you expect to achieve the things that you want to achieve, right? So the budget thing is always like a song and a dance between me and
Yeah.
the person on the phone where I'm like trying to figure out what they can afford and then also what actually makes sense for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
typically when we're doing B2B and we're talking about like a commercial or something like that, they typically will start at about $5,000 and then again, sky's the limit. But I'm willing to hear anybody out
Yeah, of
and
course.
I do work I do lower budget jobs all the time
Hmm.
and I do pro bono work. Like
Mm.
I have made a decision to myself as a business owner that I am going to do projects pro bono at least one or two or a handful a year. If I get connected with somebody and I really like them and I like what they're doing and I think what I'm doing could really help them make an impact on the community or their business, but they just don't have the money right now, I may make a decision to still work with them for nothing. Like the stipulation would be make sure you give me credit, or maybe it's kind of like a profit sharing situation where, all right, I'll partner with you, produce this for you with no money, but on the back end, if you get sales off of this, I get a percentage of the sales, right? So we can get creative with it, and we
Yeah.
can we can make things happen.
Yeah, yeah. Since I'm a business coach, I'm going to tell you a little story, and it has to do with that wedding photographer thing. So when I had gotten quotes for my wedding photographer, my sister's friend had given me a quote, and I thought that it was too much, right? She showed me what it was that she could do, and she gave me a couple of pictures of, a couple of shoes and whatever for weddings and stuff like that, and I was just like, this is too much. Then I had gone to the venue that I was going to have the wedding at, and I asked them for a recommendation of a photographer, and they gave me one, and it was a real wedding photographer. I mean, what his capabilities were and all of that. Now, he quoted me probably four times as much as my sister's friend, but I'm going to tell you something. I went with him. And I went with
Mhm.
him because when you show somebody or solve the problem, let's call it that, when you solve the problem, okay, someone will do whatever it takes to actually give you what you need, give you the payment. You know what I mean? The money was not in my bank account to write him a check right then and there, but I found it. So I wanted to just say that because I sometimes like you said with that dance, it's unnecessary as long as you've solved the problem.
Yeah.
That's my experience. That's what I've learned from Cardone 10X, and that's how I buy.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
want to
and
just
that's a good point, right? So let me ask you a question then. So
sure.
when you looked at your friend who gave you the initial quote, right, and you
Yeah.
thought it was too much money, what was really the what was really the objection? Was it you didn't think the work equated to the amount that she was asking for, right? Because that's probably what it came down to,
Yeah,
right?
it was more than that. So yeah, the work that she showed me wasn't what I needed. But in my head, I had a dream of, I wanted these pictures to be in certain places. The venue's beautiful. So it made sense to me to find somebody who actually knew what the venue was, because we're
Mhm.
not going to walk around and you're the professional, right? So I don't need to tell you exactly what the shot should be. I need somebody who knows the grounds, knows exactly where we need to go to take the pictures. So when I say to you that I want, water in the background, or I want pine trees dripping, through, I want to walk through, you know exactly where to take me. And
Yeah.
that's what that photographer, he knew. He also could send two photographers. He wasn't doing it. He sent two photographers out. He's like, we're going to have one doing this and one doing that. And that way, and he just had that talk. You could tell you were dealing with a real professional photographer. Not that this woman was not a professional photographer, but whatever photography, I think she worked for Showtime at some point. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
She wasn't what I needed. I
Yeah.
needed the other guy,
Yeah,
and
she did.
that's made
Like you
that
said,
made a
she didn't
difference.
solve the problem for you, right? Because like
Exactly.
the money, although because that's number one objection, probably with most businesses, but
Yeah.
especially creative services,
Mhm.
that's the number one objection that I get. It's like, oh wow, I didn't think it was going to be that much money. I was thinking more like $500. And then when you start digging deep, you know this from going through 10X and just being a businesswoman, usually the initial objection is not really the objection, right? It's like, oh, I
Correct.
got to go talk to my wife and this and that. Like, all right, well, what is your wife going to say? Like, what's her deal going to be? Well, I mean, I mean, she doesn't run my business. I mean, she does. So why do you got to ask her? So it's always like these mechanisms to delay the decision, right? And
uh,
why are they trying to delay the decision? It's because they're not confident that you're going to be able to solve the problem for them.
correct.
A lot of
Correct.
times it's, well, it's the money, it's the budget. Okay, well, is a lot of times what I find myself saying to that is is the price of the service or the project the most important piece for you? Almost every single time they say no. What's most important is that my business or my brand gets portrayed at this level, at a high quality level. We want everybody to know that we're the best of the best. And then I go back to what I said earlier, which is like, okay, you want to be seen as $1 million product, but you want to spend $10 to get there, and that you can't get there, right? So we can meet in the middle
Right.
most cases, but you have to be realistic with your expectations. So, yeah, and then with this stuff, you get what you pay for.
Yeah,
Like you
absolutely.
might get lucky and get somebody who's maybe newer or is just like undervaluing their services, but
Yeah.
they're really, really good. But
Yeah.
most of the time when you take a $5,000 product and you search to get it for $500, you're gonna come calling me, or maybe you won't out of embarrassment because you're just not proud of what you got, what you
Yeah.
paid for, right?
You're
And
you're
it's like a
absolutely right.
lot of things. You get what you pay for. Somebody told me one time when I had first bought an Audi, I was trying to buy like cheap parts to fix it.
Okay.
And a mechanic told me, buy nice or buy twice. And you know how many times I bought that part over and over and over until I finally scraped up enough money to buy the German part that was supposed to go in the car. And that has stuck with me so much. And I use that line a lot, even
Yeah.
to potential clients. Hey, buy nice or buy twice. Like you may find yourself with a low budget videographer, but you might not be happy. Maybe you'll get lucky. And I wish you the best of luck. But if you find out that you're not happy with that product, feel free to reach back out to me. And what I'll do is I'll take whatever you paid for that, I'll take it off of my price. So I try to incentivize and give people an opportunity to kind of correct their mistake, and I'm taking the hit. I don't care about making less money if I'm able to show somebody the value in what I do, because ultimately if I could provide that much value, if I'm that confident that what I do is going to give you a return, you're going to come back to me. And that's what it's
Absolutely.
about. It's not about one video. It's about a partnership that hopefully lasts the next 10, 20 years. I want to grow this business to where I'm not the guy going out for every shoot like your photographer. Oh, I'm going to send three guys out there to film this and that, whatever. And I'm just coming to shake hands and collect a check,
There you
like
go.
that's what I want to do.
That's what business
So
is, man. Broker the
that's what it
deal.
is. Yeah,
That's what it is.
exactly.
That's what it is. But you reminded me, I'm going to do a workshop on objection handling because, just in this discussion, it's really interesting because a lot of times people don't even realize when we're selling and the price comes up and someone said, you said it, when someone says, wow, I didn't think it was going to be that much. That's just a complaint. That
Hmm.
is not an objection. So if you just kept going, you know what I mean? Despite the fact I didn't know it was going to be that much. And you were just like, I know that'll be me, MasterCard or Visa, which one? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
just kept rolling past it instead of trying to handle it. And I'm not saying that that's what you did as far as trying to handle it, but a lot of times people start handling the fact that somebody said, wow, that's a lot of money, as opposed to just agree with it. You're right.
yeah,
It's a lot of money.
yeah. Or
Let's, let's go.
you mishandle it, or you don't handle it at all. You just accept it and hang up the phone.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
especially for people who are new to business, like I thought running a video production company was just going to be about videos.
Mhm.
It's 80, 90% sales. Like, let's
Yes,
face it. And like most businesses. And that
exactly.
was something that, like, I'm very good with talking to people, but
Yes.
selling somebody is different than talking to people. You think, but it's actually not. Once you get past the hurdle of like the uncomfortableness of like trying to pitch your service to somebody,
Mhm.
you kind of figure out that it's just we're just people here.
Oh, yeah,
You have a
for sure.
problem, I have a solution.
Uh-huh.
Either you want to work with me on the solution or you
Uh-huh.
don't. It's no sweat off my back. So it's like don't get so attached to the to the objections and the conversations, and just be honest with people. And I
Yeah.
found that that has led me to the most success with my business through like the sales portion of it. And then I used to be like, "Oh, you don't want to do it? Oh, fine, cool." And then hang up because I was just so anxious to get off the phone.
Right.
But if you, like you said, either you just kind of walk through the objection, or you realize that what they're saying is not really the objection. The
Exactly.
objection isn't the price. Like the price is probably going to be more than anybody's expecting. The objection is this going to be worth it? That's what it comes down to.
Exactly.
So
Does it solve the problem? And
does it solve the problem?
even with the wife stall, and I think you handle it really good because you're saying something along like what's going to change when you speak to your wife, and a lot of times I'll say the same thing, if your husband's if your spouse is anything like my spouse, she already knows that you're here talking to me about this and pretty much understands that it's going to cost something. So what's going to change between now and let them answer the question. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. So, but let's. I want to ask you this: when a business is considering partnering with a professional like yourself, what should they consider, or or what should they consider if they want to do it themselves? What are those questions
Um,
they should ask?
yeah, yeah. So, one, it's like, okay, do they have the time and financial commitment that it may cost, right?
Okay.
And also, like, first thing is first, is video what you really need to solve your problem, right? And a lot of cases, you could use video in some fashion to achieve the goal that you're looking for. Maybe it's just one piece of the strategy, but if again, in today's day and age, if you're not using video in some fashion, then you're probably you're slowing your progression or you're leaving money on the table. So, when you're looking for a video production company or a videographer to work with, like you want to consider a few things. First of all, have do they have something that they could show me that is similar to what I'm looking for, right? So you're going to want to look at portfolios, like what's the quality of this product? Is this even a good quality product? Are the images sharp? Does the sound good, right? Like
Mm.
these are things that like I think most people don't really think about. Like I do this every single day, so obviously I'm so super focused on the sound quality and when things transition and cuts and stuff like that. But most people are just like, well, like what's this going to cost me and is it going to help me get to where I'm trying to go? So, but there are a lot of options, right? I mean, everybody's a videographer, everybody's got a phone in their pocket, anybody could film a video for you. But it is the time and the financial investment with this person going to pay off for you. So, you want to look at their portfolio. Do they have something in the portfolio that is at least closely related to the thing that I'm looking for? But also, you know, I think most importantly, do I vibe with this person? Do I
Mm,
feel like this person's being honest with me? Are they just trying to sell me so they can collect the check and then move on? So I have a very high focus on experience, client experience, which I did not have when I started. I was just like, yeah, you got $1,000, cool, I'll do a video for you, and then that was it. But now I do onboarding meetings. We do a kickoff meeting. We do a creative session. We go through several minutes in a kickoff meeting where all we talk about is expectations.
right.
And that is very, very important for me. What is it that you, as my new client, expect from me? Whether it's, the communication piece, the timelines, the quality, whatever it is. And then what do I expect from you?
Mm,
This is something that I was leaving out early on in my career, and then you start getting into weird conversations later on when expectations aren't being met. Well, the expectations weren't even clear to begin with. So
mm,
we put it all down on paper and say, hey, from you, I expect you to give me fast and final feedback. That's like one of the most important things to me. If you are the decision maker, or if you and your partner are going to all decide on edits that we need to make to your video, well, I expect that to be done in a timely fashion.
right,
So if I send you something on Monday and then you say, "Hey, we'll have your feedback by Friday," just make sure you got my feedback by Friday, because I want to get this thing done for you, and I want to get it right so that way you could put it to work. Because if it's just sitting on my hard drive unfinished, it's not helping anybody, right? I'm
right.
probably not getting my final payment, and you're not making any progress because you're not using the video. So really, really big on expectations. If the person you're talking to kind of like skates over expectations, that's kind of a red flag for me. And then also, again, like the vibe check. Does this person pass your vibe check? Do is something off, like they just don't
Hmm.
resonate with you, you don't feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable with them in the beginning conversations, think about how uncomfortable you're going to be when they have a camera in your face and they're
Mm,
trying to direct you on a set or through a script or through like an interview process. Like, that's going to be really uncomfortable, and that is going to translate in your final video. So like I'm huge on expectations, and then like just comfortability. Like,
okay.
how comfortable is this person with me, right? And also, do they pass my vibe check? Because I don't take everybody who calls me. I don't care if they got $20,000 budget. If something with them seems off for me, if they seem like they're going to be a pain in the butt, like more than it's going to be worth, then
Yes.
I just won't work with them. So it's like my level of headache
Yeah.
sometimes, like you gotta weigh the financial gain, right? It's like risk and benefit.
Yeah.
So
It took me a while to figure that out, but I got you on that one.
yeah, well, you don't want to walk away from an opportunity, right? you
Right.
think you think take every opportunity. And also, kind of on that subject, when I first started, if you were go to my website or my Google business page, you would see weddings, real estate,
Hmm.
business, like personal stuff. Like, it was all over the place, because in my mind, I need to I need to take advantage of every possibility that's out there.
Right.
But I kind of figured out, and I figured this out through some business coaching that I went through,
Good.
um, that you have to niche down, right? You
Mm,
have to have a focus, at least in the beginning.
in the beginning.
If I'm talking to a CEO of a $20 million construction company, and then they go to my website and they see weddings and real estate and
Mm,
all of this, it's going to be very obvious to them that I'm not the expert in what they do. And
Mm,
especially if I made myself out to be the expert and now everything they're seeing is all over the map. So now when you go to my website and you look at my portfolio, it's like 99% construction related, like 99%, right? Because
gotcha.
that's primarily who I'm talking to. So you kind of like find a market, an industry, you niche down. And once you've mastered that, all right, then you could kind of like expand to the next niche. And then maybe if it's website related, you have a different landing page or a different pages that you send business coaches to or weddings to or real estate
Right,
to. So it's completely separate, right? So
right.
um yeah, I'll go off on that tangent. But
I
yeah,
gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
So, what was the question?
Well, we're gonna wrap it up, but before we do, if there's a business owner that wants to hire you, okay, but is still on the fence, is there anything that you could offer them to make it a no-brainer decision?
Sure. Yeah. Right now, for a limited time only, we say, we are running a no risk offer.
Uh-huh.
So you can go to my website, seymourmac.com/no risk, and that will bring you to the landing page for this offer. I'm also running ads on Facebook, Instagram right now, and I will post about it pretty frequently. But we are only taking about 10 business owners currently for this offer. So basically, the way it usually works is we decide we're going to do a project together. In order to get your project on the books, you have to put 50%, at least 50% of the budget, of the total budget, down as a down payment. For the no risk offer, there is no money down. So there is some parameters to kind of like keep this within certain boundaries, but essentially what's going to happen is you're going to get a video that's valued at $5,000 for $0 down. We will go through the process the way that I normally go through the process with my clients. You're going to have the full experience. We're going to produce the video for you. We're going to show you the first draft of the video. And then that's when you're going to be able to decide whether you want to purchase the video or not.
Mm,
So if you love the video, which I am very confident that you're going to love the video and you're going to want to use it, you can then pay for the video. We'll make whatever changes necessary that we may have to make to get you the final version, the way that you want it exactly. And then that's it, right? So there's no risk for the client when they're using this offer. All the risk is on my end, because you may see the first draft and I don't know, maybe you think it's garbage, maybe you don't like it. Well, you don't have to buy it, but you also don't get to use the video, right? So
you
I
don't
like
have
I
to.
will, yeah, it's just you can't have it all.
I
So
know, right?
yeah, so
Like,
all the risk is going to be
darn.
on our end, as far as the video production goes. And then once you see the video, the first draft of the video anyway, you will then be able to make your decision. I'm confident you're going to want it. You're going to pay for it. You're going to love it. You're going to put it to work. It's going to make you a ton of money. It's going to help you solve your problem. And then you're going to be looking to me to say, what can we do next? And that's kind of the goal. So
Yeah. And
the
that's
no
the
risk
truth.
offer.
That's the truth, guys. You're gonna have to follow Mike Seymour Mac to see the work that he does. You know, Mike, you are amazing. I follow you on Instagram. I follow you on Facebook. I have seen your work. And it is, and I know some of the guys that you're actually working for, so that's awesome. But I love that offer. It's stupid if you don't take action, guys. Really, because that is, if the ultimate problem is that you don't know what the value is going to be, this is the offer that you want to be in. So I love that. I love that. How do we follow you on social media, Mike?
Yeah, so basically Seymour Mac, right? So you could just search on Facebook, Instagram, Seymour Mac. On Instagram it is underscore Seymour Mac or just Seymour Mac Productions. You could find me that way as well. Or just go to my website, seymourmac.com, and then I have the links for all my social media pages on there, on LinkedIn as well. TikTok, I'm on everything.
Yeah.
Whether I want to be or not, you know.
Yeah. Spell
And,
Seymour Mac,
and you
because
should too. Yes.
you and I both know.
Yeah, yeah. Seymour Mac is SeymourMac.
Awesome. Awesome. Because we also have this not just on YouTube, but on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and one more. I can't remember what it is, but I want all our listeners to find you. All right,
Excellent.
Mike. Well, this was great. Thank you so much This also counts as a one-to-one, by the way.
All right, you want me to put it in or you want
Yes,
to put it in?
please put
All
it
right,
in.
I'll put it in for you.
That's our B&I lingo for, we did what we were supposed to do this week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, all right. And I always leave with a quote, and I'm going to quote from Grant Cardone. And I always use the same quote because I never look up another one. But Grant Cardone says, "Success is your duty, your obligation, and your responsibility." So, Mike, let's make it a 10x day.
Let's go, baby.
Let's
Wakanda
go.
forever.
This episode is sponsored by Day One Accounting, because you got to start somewhere, so start with Day One. And by Grant Cardone's 10X Certified Business Coach program. Let's 10X your revenue by 30 to 40% in 90 days.